on Denver7 News at 10, teachers, childcare workers, people 65 and older, all in line to get vaccinated. Should Colorado be focusing its vaccine efforts on our homeless population?
They're definitely a population you can think of that has high potential exposure to the virus.
Tonight, we're taking a 360 look at the debate as Denver pushes vaccine priority for unhoused people in the city.
Plus, taking heat from his own party as stimulus talks ramp up.
Like, why side with an anti-immigrant initiative if it meant nothing?
A vote from freshman Senator John Hickenlooper has Democrats questioning his stance on immigrant rights.
And one term, 2 impeachment trials.
We have to make sure that we're holding people accountable, that we're embracing the truth and telling the story of what happened in order to fix what happened.
President Trump's legal team gets ready to defend him against accusations he stirred up a violent mob that smashed its way into the U.S. Capitol.
Tonight, even more Coloradans are eligible to get the coronavirus shot. In addition to those 70 and up and first responders, grade school teachers, child care workers, and people ages 65 to 69 are now on the list of people who can receive the vaccine.
Now, the main focus is unchanged, vaccinating 70% of people 70 and older by the end of this month. But Governor Polis says it is time to get moving on the next group to prevent any slowdown. Make sure these life-saving doses are not just sitting around in storage.
Good evening and welcome to Denver7 News at 10. I'm Ann Trujillo.
And I'm Shannon Ogden. Glad you're with us tonight. Well, the state is clear about who should get the vaccine next, but Denver's mayor is asking the governor to rethink that plan.
Denver Mayor Michael Hancock is asking the state to add our homeless population to the list of those who can get the shot right away, regardless of their age. He says they are some of the most vulnerable during this pandemic.
And tonight, Denver7's Sloan Dickey is taking this issue 360, asking whether Colorado should look at housing status as well as age and occupation when making these decisions about who's next in line to get the vaccine.
We've seen great eagerness from people experiencing homelessness to get vaccinated.
As vaccines roll out for vulnerable populations across Colorado, one vulnerable population, people experiencing homelessness, gained a strong public advocate.
Here in Denver, we have a much stronger need because of the size of our persons experiencing homelessness.
The city of Denver is urging the state to prioritize homeless residents in its vaccine rollout rather than strictly adhering to the state's age-based approach. The move has stirred opinions on all sides, and we're here to share them with you. In tonight's 360, you'll hear from a range of people, including city employees, homeless advocates, and Denver residents. And you, our Denver7 viewers, have strong opinions. First, what led the city to decide it needed to prioritize Denver's homeless population?
We have a high rate of people that are at high risk to negative consequences from COVID-19, and we have congregate living settings.
Currently, the state does not prioritize its unhoused as a vulnerable population.
It doesn't make sense to go to a shelter where there might be 300 or 400 people and only vaccinate those that meet a certain age requirement or that have a certain healthcare condition.
Kathy Alderman of the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless says vaccinating those in homeless shelters is a huge step to preventing hospital overflow and helping flatten the curve.
People that are experiencing homelessness are more likely to require hospitalization. An outbreak within a shelter where 250, 300 individuals might be could put enormous pressure on the hospital system.
Advocates say homeless means vulnerable.
I think it's well-founded. I think people who cannot retreat and keep themselves isolated from other people by necessity probably have a great need to have the vaccine available to them first.
But the governor's plan focuses on age and occupation, starting with those 70 and up, first responders, and now adding those 65 to 69 to the vaccine list, and educators. We've reached out to the governor's office on the potential to prioritize homeless. We're still waiting to hear back.
It should be based on age overall and pre-existing conditions.
So many of you are weighing in on social media. Barbara writes, "Are you kidding me? My husband is a liver transplant with no immune system, and I'm 68 and number 58,000 on the Kaiser list. Who comes up with this nonsense?" Tyler writes, "Probably should focus on taxpayers first." And another Denver7 viewer writes, "Shouldn't they be just as much a priority as the rest?"
I think that's a scientific decision, really. to determine what is the risk reward in terms of, particularly severe illness and death.
Even if the state decides to prioritize its homeless residents, a major disagreement remains. Should the vaccine go to all of Denver's unhoused or just those living in shelters?
While we would love to see more planning take place for people that are sleeping outside or that are in encampments, we're really focused on these congregate settings.
Regardless of the answer, the reality of Denver's vulnerable population on the streets is hard to ignore.
Those of us who can retreat and social distance, we can wait a few more weeks until the more vaccines come out, because the homeless can't wait a few more weeks until vaccines come out.
Sloan Dickey, Denver7.
And public health doctors say there are many factors at play as to why those who are homeless are more likely to catch the virus and can have a more severe case of COVID because of it. First up, social distancing is difficult when you're sharing a tent or living in a shelter with dozens of other people. And for many, the viral infection comes on top of other health challenges.
They often have a lot of what we call comorbidities, other underlying risk factors that might make them more likely to get seriously ill. Due to COVID-19, either because of inadequate access to medical care, uncontrolled diabetes, all sorts of underlying conditions that may make them more likely to be sick.
Denver's mayor says the rate of COVID hospitalizations among the homeless is 3 times higher than the city average. All right, now we want to get your take. Should homeless Coloradans move up the vaccine priority list? You can email us 360@thedenverchannel.com.
The health department that serves Adams, Arapahoe, and Douglas counties says it's working to boost vaccine uptake in the communities where it's lagging right now. Tri-County Health says a slow start particularly is clear in communities of color. So to address the issue, the health department's rolling out a brand new plan. It calls for more community vaccination sites in areas that are underserved, as well as partnering with organizations already established in those neighborhoods for outreach and education. They're also pushing for pharmacies to get the maximum number of doses every week so they can get the vaccines into the neighborhood grocery stores.
The House Ways and Means Committee announced its stimulus plan today. The group of Democrats is backing $1,400 direct payments, boosted unemployment benefits, and more generous tax breaks for low earners and families with kids.
As lawmakers hammer out the stimulus details, some Colorado Democrats are raising concerns about a vote by new Senator John Hickenlooper. Now, he voted last week in favor of a non-binding agreement that would stop undocumented immigrants from receiving pandemic stimulus checks.
As Denver7 CB Cotton reports, even though the vote is unlikely to have any effect on the final relief package, Hickenlooper is already feeling the heat from his own party.
Downtown Denver's federal buildings is where the work for Coloradans often begins. And Pamela Resendez says that work should be built on promises fulfilled. But now, Resendez feels promises have been broken.
It felt also as a betrayal.
Resendez is the executive director of Colorado Jobs with Justice. The group advocates for workers' rights. Resendez says coalition members were left feeling angry after freshman Democratic Senator John Hickenlooper's vote last Thursday. The vote in favor of an amendment that blocks stimulus payments for undocumented immigrants.
This vote just seemed to be such an easy decision for him without him taking into account the stories of the constituents that he represents.
Hickenlooper's non-binding vote unlikely to have any impact on future stimulus plans. And under U.S. law, undocumented immigrants can't get stimulus payments anyways because they don't have Social Security numbers. But the outcry following his vote is strong.
We never thought that he would go that far because this amendment went so far and so deep down a xenophobic and racist road.
Joseph Salazar, a former state representative and member of Colorado's DNC delegation, co-wrote with his delegation members this letter to the state party chair calling for a public censure of Senator Hickenlooper.
You don't throw communities under a bus so that way you could try to pass, especially trying to curry favor from well-known xenophobic and racist Republican senators. You don't curry their favor and throw communities under the bus.
ACLU's Colorado chapter also released this letter with 300 advocate signatures, saying Hickenlooper's non-binding vote sent the message, "I only care about you when I'm campaigning."
I think it was an anti-immigrant vote.
On Monday night, Denver7 confirmed that Hickenlooper met virtually with leaders in the immigrant community to talk about his vote. Denise Maez, ACLU Colorado Public Policy Director, said she's still not clear why Hickenlooper voted the way he did.
I think we remain disappointed about the vote. We wanted to let the senator know that we would be watching for his future votes.
Today, a spokesperson for Hickenlooper provided a statement saying, in part, immigrant communities and undocumented workers specifically are on the front lines of our economy, now more than ever. I recognize how this vote has distorted that important fact and fed dangerous and damaging narratives about the undocumented community. We'll have his full statement online. CB Cotton, Denver7.
Thank you, CB. Tonight, a mother of 4 arrested by Border Patrol agents in Texas is reunited with her 4 children in Broomfield tonight. Hilda Murillo spent several days in jail at a New Mexico detention facility. She was arrested at a temporary Border Patrol checkpoint while visiting family. Now, her attorney says she gave some people a ride without asking if they had papers that detailed their legal status. Murillo is also undocumented and is undergoing removal proceedings, and she is facing 2 charges for conspiracy to transport an undocumented person. Her attorney says the charges are serious and commonly used against people in border communities.
I wasn't sure what was going on. I didn't understand. I got very scared. I got very nervous, and the officers just told me to go with them.
Now, we asked Murillo's attorney about the people in her car and how they're connected. She declined to comment or elaborate out of fear of hurting her client's case.
Well, right now, a proposal to change group living rules in Denver is sparking a heated debate. Dozens of people right now are adding their voices during the public comment period in front of City Council. Now, council members are discussing a plan that would allow up to 5 unrelated people to live in a single household. Now, the current rules are no more than 2. Supporters say the big change would be a big boost for friends who want to share a space. Opponents say packing more people into homes will create more problems with density, especially during this pandemic. And with dozens of people in line to share their thoughts tonight, it's going to be a while before a vote. So check in with Denver7 News starting at 4:30 a.m. for the latest.
In a little over 12 hours, former President Trump's second impeachment trial will begin. It's the first time any president has been impeached twice. Democrats will be making the case that President Trump encouraged a violent mob to storm the Capitol. Colorado Representatives Diana DeGette and Joe Neguse will be part of that team. The president's lawyers are expected to argue that his words are protected by the First Amendment. You can watch complete coverage of the impeachment hearings right here on Denver7 tomorrow morning starting at 11 a.m. And for local news, weather, and sports, you can always switch over to Local 3 or search for us on your Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Android device.
Coming up on Denver7 News at 10, should first responders get a bigger paycheck during the pandemic?
I think it did lend itself a little weird feeling of, quite frankly, taking hazard pay for doing a job that we do every day.
As Colorado works to rebound, local leaders come up with differing plans on how to spend pandemic relief dollars.
Just a gigantic temperature contrast across the region. I'll let you know when the bitter cold is going to arrive in Denver.